Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and I am here to do a tag. Let's get outside with books tag. This was created by Sandy at Miss Reads a Lot, and I was tagged by Read Becca. Please check out both their channels. This tag has 9 prompts, and I'm doing this on the lovely shores of scenic Lake Mooney. Prompt number 1, Into Thin Air. What is one of your favorite books about or set in the outdoors? Well, the title of this prompt probably is my favorite book set in the outdoors, and that is Into Thin Air by John Krakauer, about a disastrous climb to the top of Mount Everest, where a number of people died. But let me give you another one, a short story, To Build a Fire by Jack London. And this is a story of a gold miner who sets out on his own into the Alaskan wilderness. And that is a mistake. And he makes a number of mistakes on his trip into the Alaskan wilderness. And he comes to a situation where if he does not build a fire, he will die. If he does not keep this fire going, he will die. And it is a story of what can happen when a man underestimates the strength of Mother Nature. Prompt number 2, Winterdance. This is the story of Gary Paulsen running the Iditarod for the first time, even though he isn't particularly good at it. Do you have a hobby or skill that you keep attempting, even though you're not particularly good at it? I have been trying to teach myself to play pickleball. Pickleball is a sport, sort of a cross between badminton and ping pong, and I am really bad at it. And I continue to try because my wife wants to play a lot. Even though the unspoken rules of the community I live in is that husbands and wives do not play on the same team together. I don't know if I'm going to be continuing. Whenever my wife says, "You want to go out and practice?" I'm like, no. So I think that's a hobby or skill that I'm going to have to let fall on the wayside and let her just play that game with the other members of the community. Prompt number 3, Wild. This is the story of Cheryl Strayed hiking the PCT after the death of her mother. Recommend a book where the central theme is dealing with grief. I suppose I don't deal with grief-specific novels. I did look some up on the internet, and there's a whole list of books that are dealing with grief, and none of those were books that I've ever read. So I'm going to deal with specific scenes in 3 books. I'm not going to mention the title of the first 2 books because it could potentially be a spoiler. In the first one, it is the story of a father who has learned that his young daughter or teenage daughter has just been murdered. And he is so stricken with grief that he does not know what to do. And what he does is he has a collection of ships in a bottle, which is one of his prized collections. And he decides the only way to deal with grief is to destroy his collection. When I first read this, I kind of chuckled because it just did not seem right to me. Perhaps I've never experienced grief on that level, but it just did not work for me. In the second, there is a transgendered character who was also murdered. And the character's mother, at first, was very dismissive and very disapproving of the character's transitioning. But after he is murdered and she learns of his death, she sees their tombstone, and she is so distraught at seeing the original name this character had at birth and not their transgendered name that she destroys the tombstone and insists that a new one be built with their transgendered name. And again, I felt the author was pushing an agenda. And the scene, much like the scene with destroying ships in a bottle, just did not work for me. Now, the third is, I can tell you the book is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. And I will cover the name of the characters. But in this, that a young man has died in war, and one of his companions is so stricken with grief for the death of this young man in war that Tolstoy describes him yelping or whimpering like a dog. And when I read it, I could just see this older man just choking back in grief for the death of this young man. And it was a very effective scene, I thought. Much more effective than the previous two scenes that I described. So, 2 bad scenes with grief and 1 good one with grief. Number 4. Into the Wild follows Chris McCandless, who travels to a remote Alaska, unfortunately passes away in the wilderness. Does the idea of living off the grid, away from society, appeal to you? Not in any great length, maybe a weekend. Around 2010 or so, my wife was very into this doomsday belief on peak oil, and that said that the world was running out of easily obtainable oil. Basically saying that we've used up half of our oil reserves in the world, and we're now down to below 50%. And there's going to be a huge crash in oil production, and electricity is going to go out, and society is going to collapse, and everyone's going to have to live off the grid. And she wanted to buy a farm near where we lived in Washington State. So we went out looking at some farm properties. And we were looking at it, and the real estate agent was walking around the property. And I noticed that these fence posts at the edge, and they were all rotted. And I said, well, can we get someone to replace this? He goes, no, you have to replace it yourself. And I kind of looked at her, and she just assumed that this book-reading computer programmer would know how to replace fence posts. I have no clue whatsoever how to replace a fence post. It's honestly a skill that I have no interest whatsoever in learning how to do. So living off the grid, yeah, no. Maybe a one-night camping trip, maybe 2. After that, water, toilets, showers, those are my kind of thing. Prompt number 5. A Walk in the Woods, a story of Bill Bryson and Katz hiking the Appalachian Trail. What is a book with a really interesting friendship? Now, I presume people in these tags have mentioned Sherlock Holmes and Watson, D'Artagnan and the Three Musketeers. So let me go with, yeah, still a popular book, but maybe a little less known. This is from the Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. It features an Earthman, Ganley I, who's traveled a great distance to a distant planet. Now, the people on this planet were humans at one time, but they have evolved into something still human, but not the same type of human that Ganley I was. They are a genderless species of human who can switch between male and female sex whenever they, let's just say, come into heat. Not the terminology of the book, but easily explained. And it is a story of these two people who form a friendship under very difficult circumstances. And this is one of the best science fiction novels ever written, so do check that out. Number 6, Adrift. Story of Steve Callahan's time lost at sea. Do you like the water? Yeah, I like the water. I like the lake, I like swimming pools, and I sort of like the ocean. I love taking cruise ships on oceans, and my wife loves to visit the beach, so I will spend a lot of time on the beach. Swimming in the ocean is okay for short periods of time. Every time you come out of the ocean, you feel like you've been drenched in salt and you feel itchy, and I immediately want to take a quick shower, so I don't like that part of the water. But I could imagine myself, if I lived 100 years ago or so, being a sailor on one of those ships and just looking at the horizon of the ocean, because the ocean, when it stretches out for unaccountable distance is just a beautiful thing to behold. Prompt number 7, Hatchet. Fictional story of a young boy who is in a plane crash while traveling to Alaska and has to survive only with a hatchet. What is your favorite survival story? There's a lot of stories about Alaska in this thing. I'm going to go with a book of nonfiction. It's called Deep Survival, True Stories of Miraculous Endurance and Sudden Death by Lawrence Gonzalez. It is essentially describing many events where people are in a situation that they have to survive or die. He is saying, the author, not only of the stories, that there is a certain type of personality that is more suitable to survival than others. He says, when confronted with a life-threatening situation, 90% of people freeze or panic, and a remaining 10% stay cool and survive. Now, I'm not sure that is really the case for all times, because there can just be an accident like a plane crash where you're sitting in the right seat and for whatever reason you survive and other people in that plane die. And he does describe that, but it's been so many years I don't remember those details. But it was a fascinating book just to see how people deal with these critical situations. Number 8, A Perfect Storm. Story of fishermen that were lost at sea during a huge storm. Do you like stormy weather? Yes, I love thunderstorms. When I lived in Washington State, we didn't get a lot of thunderstorms. But now living in Virginia, I might get to see a thunderstorm now and then. We had one a few weeks ago that was sort of a minor thunderstorm, not a big Zeus tossed and bolts kind of storm, and that's what I want to see. I want to see the angry Zeus in the sky, and hopefully I'll be able to set up my iPhone and get a picture of that, because a thunderstorm is such a beautiful thing to behold. Prompt number 9. Tag some friends. I think this tag has gone around a bit, so I'm not sure who has done it. So let me go ahead and tag some people I don't think have done this. Criminali, Roz, that's scally-dallying around the books, and let's go with Michael K. Vaughn. So I hope you have enjoyed this tag video by the lovely shores of Lake Mooney. Goodbye.